So very briefly, it's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank you for making the journey to arrive at this fine facility and to take time to think about your own teaching, your own research, and to share with others as well. I bring greetings to you in Turkish and in Georgian. I'm a faculty member at Michigan State University in the U.S. I'm a professor in the Faculty of Education. Our university briefly has about 61,000 students. About 10,000 of those are graduate students. We're a very strong college of education historically. If rankings matter, we've been ranked number 1 in the U.S. in teacher education for the last 30 years in a row. So it's a great faculty to work with and really strong doctoral students to work with. I hope today to share a little bit with you about some of the work I've been doing related to teacher education and how can we equip teachers for this AI era that's in front of us. Is that a short enough introduction?
Thank you. Excellent.
Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
So I began my working career as a teacher. I was really young. I was 21 years old. And my first computer looked like this. Some of you might remember these type of computers. On the left is a cassette recorder. We would store data on a little tape. And on the right, you'll see slots where you could slide disks, computer disks. But in a matter of time, I really transformed what I did in terms of teaching. I became interested in teacher education. How do I prepare new teachers? And that's what I've been doing for many years. This is a photograph of one of my classrooms. One of the things you'll notice is that students are working in small groups around the perimeter of the room. There are large screens, many screens around the classroom. We're a technology-intensive teacher preparation program. Every student is expected to have a laptop and a smartphone. We'll look closely at one of the tables. You'll notice students, their phone, their laptop, a tablet, but we still use a book. You'll see a book in the lower corner there. So we prepare teachers who know how to use the old technology of books, but the newer digital technologies as well. In the background, you'll see 3 screens near the top. Those are very basic robots. They're screens mounted on wheels. You can see the wheels of one of the robots. And we teach our students who are becoming teachers how to begin to think about robots in the classroom. In fact, if a student is absent, I expect them to log on to their phone and they can take control of one of the robots. And they have to participate in class through the robot. They can move it around the room. And when there's a coffee or chai break, they can move the robot down the hallway, down to the coffee shop. So in every way we can imagine and afford, we're thinking about how do technologies fit in with the work that we do in preparing teachers. I've also been interested in teacher learning, teachers who are already teaching and want to upgrade their skills and knowledge. Here I am in Kazakhstan, working with 3 experienced teachers, thinking about how AI can be part of what they do in their planning. And I'm also in Kazakhstan here in this picture, working with teachers who will train other teachers to be more effective in their technology integration. So teacher learning has become a real integral part of the work. I've also become interested in teacher technology learning. For example, a couple of years ago, I worked with a new computer company in California that is imagining every wall in a classroom as a computer screen. So if you walked up to the wall and touched it, it would function like a tablet. You could slide things down the wall. You could slide them onto your tablet or laptop. So the whole environment is a screen in a sense. These teachers here are just learning how to do it. You can see they're touching and they're working on a giant puzzle, making them comfortable and having fun doing it. Here I am in Serkan Düzgün's eye movement lab, and so this is a place where also looking at how interfaces work and teacher learning. And then more recently, doing research related to AI and technology. I'm sorry this slide doesn't show up clearly. My slides in this computer aren't quite compatible. I have a different version of PowerPoint, but this is a recent article published with colleagues at Gazi University on the use of AI in assessment of young children and their reading fluency. And then with Dr. Akyol and Özlem Bosch, we published a book a few years ago on technology integration in Turkish. So I'm grateful to be here. That's just a little background. I'm thankful to TÜBİTAK, who has funded this opportunity for me to live in Turkey for 6 months. Been working with these colleagues here, Dr. Akyol, Dr. Düzgün, and Dr. Mustafa at Gazi University. I've also been able to host 5 Turkish scholars at my university. You might recognize some of these scholars. And then recently, with some colleagues, had a TÜBİTAK grant funded that will take a look at AI and teacher education. It's also been a great pleasure to look at the university business partnerships that are available and ongoing in Turkey, and to meet many students. I just met someone here earlier who is a student as well, and I think there are others. These are students at Gazi University. So the question I've been thinking about, given this kind of experience, is how do we equip 100 million teachers in the world? That's how many teachers there are in the world. How do we equip them to use AI quickly? How do we accelerate their learning so that they use these tools effectively and ethically? So it's this question that I think we all need to grapple with. Turkey has approximately 1 million teachers across the country. I looked up online, and Georgia has approximately just over 60,000 teachers in the country. How do we take that number of colleagues and quickly familiarize them and assist them in how to use these tools for themselves and with their students? That's an enormous challenge. It's a challenge we haven't faced in, as far as I'm aware, in the history of our planet. So the way I think about AI is the technology is great, it's interesting, it could be problematic, but I'm concerned about the human dimension. how do we help ourselves, our colleagues, make use of this in ways that are ethical and are effective? So for the next few moments, I had planned to talk about three things, but I'm just going to pick one of them. I'm going to pick the middle one here, the Odyssey. And I'd like to walk you through a kind of journey, a journey I've had and the journey that other people have had who've tried to really integrate technology well and to do it deeply, deep technology integration. And what does it take to do that? So I used the word Odyssey drawing from the epic poem by Homer, where Odysseus spent 10 years traveling, trying to make his way home. And my point is that you and I are on a journey, maybe similar to Odysseus, that will take some time. In fact, the way to become skilled and expert at something takes about 10 years. If we look at the research on developing expertise, it takes about a decade for us as humans to do that. This pattern of taking 10 years was first identified with medical doctors. When they finish medical school, it takes them about 10 years to get really good at practicing medicine. Unfortunately, they make a few mistakes along the way. But even us as educators, it takes people some years to get very good at what they're doing in their teaching. And they have to be very deliberate in their practice in getting better. Otherwise, they could go 30 years and not get better. So that's why I'm focusing on the Odyssey. It's a journey, and each of us has a journey in integrating technology. This journey for technology integration began some years ago. Some of you may know that from 1985 to 1995, Apple Computer initiated a project to see how could we integrate technology into classrooms. They spent a considerable sum of money and a lot of human power in several sites around North America to see how do we help people get better at using digital technologies. Has anybody here read the book that resulted from this 10-year project? I hadn't. So a few years I read it. Very interesting, and I hope that you'll take the time to track it down and read the book. Well, I was inspired by that project, and so 14 years later, I started a similar project. Technologies had changed from when Apple did its 10-year project. And so I wondered, what would it take today, many years later, to think about technology integration? So for 10 years, I worked with a school district to look at technology integration. Different tools, different machines. The internet had really opened up, become much more widely available. I brought with me 24 doctoral students. And over the 10-year period, we really focused on supporting this one school. I'll tell you about it in a minute. More recently, I've been working in Kazakhstan. It's a 2-year project. It's somewhat, I smile when I say this, the funder thinks in 2 years we can equip teachers to be totally ready to integrate technology. 2 years is too short, but it's a good start. And I think that in Turkey, there are efforts underway to develop the Turkish teacher of tomorrow. Last week with Serkan, I was at the Istanbul AI Summit and heard some really interesting developments that the ministry has in the works. And I hope to learn more about Georgia and the teacher of tomorrow. What works are underway here to equip fully and deeply teachers who can use technologies well and ethically. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to focus just on the the 10-year project in Michigan. I know I'm looking back in time, but I think there are lessons we can learn, not just from Apple's 10 years, but from the 10 years I worked with this school. One of the first things that became clear in the project I worked with was that it needed to be a partnership. And the partnership needed to be led, it needed to be initiated by the school. So you'll see the word school here first. The school made key decisions on how this partnership evolved. If I and my doctoral students had come in and said, this is what you need to do, many of the teachers would have just backed away and said, no, we won't have it. So it was very much school-led. The university and the school are located about 2 hours apart in the state of Michigan, here in the United States. So we were commuting some distance between the schools occasionally. The school itself is a very rural school. It was out in the country, farmland all around. Most of the teachers had farms with cows and goats and sheep, and they grew corn. This is a picture of the school. It's called Oak Forest Middle School, grades 6, 7, and 8. There were 40 teachers in this school. They had a technician. You can see the number of students, and they had one computer lab when we started the project. The university, I've said a little bit already. It included many doctoral students, and here I am with 10 of them. And we would travel to the school and work closely with teachers, one-on-one, in small groups, and sometimes large groups. Our approach to working with teachers in the schools was to think about our work as planting something, as growing something, nurturing it slowly, and following the lead of the teachers, listening to them closely, and trying to respond in ways that were professionally respectful of them and the demands on their life and their time. Oftentimes, when technology is integrated into a school, this image is used. We're going to roll out the program. Okay, we're going to lay it on top of them. We're going to expect them to do what we want them to do. This kind of approach has been shown to be ineffective, that there's a kind of resistance that sets up, even if it's unconscious. So our approach was to help people grow into this. We thought it might take a few years, but we realized soon that it would take longer, and ended up taking 10 years. We know that 10 years is a time frame that many political leaders don't want to hear. It's going to take that long, 10 years. But the reality is that we're human, and we need time and support, lots of it, to get better at something, especially something as complex as teaching. Another thing that was central to our work is that the leaders in the school needed to be part of what was happening. So the woman here with the pink top on is the school principal. She had to be a part of all the learning that was going on. Often, my experience is that school principals are in their office where they're doing management things. But for this to work, we needed the leadership to model and show that they were committed to doing this. The ethos of this particular work was one of play. We found early on and saw in the research that in order to become really skilled at something, you have to become comfortable. and you have to begin to play with it and see the possibilities. We were inspired by the work of Einstein, who in his own work found that this idea of combinatory play, of just putting things together and enjoying possibilities, opened things up and made him feel more comfortable and made him able to imagine greater innovation. In fact, he said combinatory play is the essential feature in productive thought. And so this became a kind of statement that guided the ethos of what we did. How did we do this in reality? Well, we created what we called a sandbox. And this is an AI-generated image, but you can see teachers essentially are playing with the technology. And we gave them plenty of time to do this. We would share, show, experiment with them, and then they would take it and do greater things as a result. The frame of reference that we used was to think broadly about technology. Our experience was that most people have a very narrow conception of technology today. Let me explain. If we have a definition of technology that's broad, we see technology as a tool that's used, something that's useful to accomplish a goal. This means that almost anything is a technology. Take, for example, this. This is a technology. It's a tool. And we use it to accomplish something. We're cutting something with this tool. This is what we call a single-use tool. It's used for one thing, cutting. But there are also tools that are multi-use, like this. Maybe you've seen a pocket knife that can do many things. So some of the technologies we have as teachers and in other parts of our life are multi-use. We can do many things with them. AI is in this direction. It's a multi-use tool. But AI is more than multi-use. It's a mega-use tool, like this. It can do a huge number of things. And so from the beginning, we need to think of technology more broadly. It's not just single-use tools. So for teachers, this was a different way of thinking. They had thought of technology as just a computer, maybe an application. But in fact, paper and pencil is a technology. In fact, when paper and pencil came along, it revolutionized parts of education. It's hard for us to imagine that today. So we want the teachers to think broadly about what is a technology and what can I use. In fact, you'll see here that we use the word technologies, plural, not just singular technology. Why do we do that? Well, it turns out that in many school settings, some technologies are not available. So we need to think about what is available. We may not have speech to text for writing. We may just have paper pencil. And so we have to think about, that's our technology. That's what we're going to have to use. And in time, we may have other technologies. So we had teachers create what we called spectra. It's like a continuum. We wanted them to think about, if you're writing originally was done with this tool in the sand or the dirt, like out here on the beach. And in time, brushes were developed for writing. And pencil and paper. And you've probably seen the stylus tablets now that are available. And of course, keyboards and Now we have speech to text. All of these are technologies for writing. And we needed our teachers to think broadly about what do you have available, or what tool might be best for the goal you're trying to achieve. It might be paper pencils the best right now, but tomorrow tablets might be the best tool. So we have to be flexible, and we're trying to cultivate a culture of flexibility in the thinking that teachers have. So we call these a spectrum or spectra. And we encourage teachers to develop these for all the tools that were available in their school and that they might have one day if funding was available. We also encourage them to think about what are called affordances and constraints. That you could think of an affordance as a positive. Every technology has some positive feature to it, and a constraint is a negative, something it doesn't do very well. And this is really key when we begin thinking about preparing teachers to use AI in the classroom. What is it going to do well for us? And what is it not going to serve us or our students well? So an affordance is something that enables. It helps make something happen. And affordances give us a kind of superpower, like we're Superman. It gives us the ability to do something more than we could do just ourselves. But these technologies also have constraints. They limit things. They might hallucinate. They might do other things or can't do other things that we want to do. So they essentially are like a ball and chain. They kind of tie us down. They restrict our motion. So we had teachers create what we called affordance constraint analyses. It's a fancy name. But it just simply means let's look at tools and think about the range of tools. I'll show you one here. So if you imagine a chalkboard, it's a tool. It's technology. Very common. If it's not a chalkboard, it's a whiteboard in a classroom. Or it could be paper, large sheets of paper. So what are the other technologies that could be available for use if you are working with a group and you need to write in a kind of public space? Well, you could use smart boards or Promethean boards. Many classrooms in Turkey have these. Or it could be a wall screen, something that would cover a large surface in a room. We then asked teachers to think about what are the pluses and minuses for each of these? What are the constraints and affordances? They would create a little matrix like this. So when it comes to cost, see the dollar sign over there? Okay, some of them are more expensive than others. When it comes to the ease of use, some are kind of so-so, others are much easier and less easier. So we're trying to help them think through in more detail than they might normally. What are the pluses and minuses of different technologies? And I must say this was a task they really enjoyed, thinking this through and sharing with each other. We also did some awareness building activities. We call these algorithmic awareness. And these were activities they did with kids in their classroom to help them become aware of how things are going on in the background of technology that we can't see. So one of those activities related to search, finding things through using search engines. We gave these middle school students tablets. On one tablet, they had Google search. On another one, they had Bing and Yandex on a third. And we asked students to type the same prompt into each search engine. So, for example, one of the prompts was, how tall is this mountain? you would think that's a factual question. You just come up with a number. And this is the mountain that they were to get the height of. And when they typed it into Google, they got this number. When they typed it into Bing, what do you think the number was? It was a little bit less. Okay? So the mountain got shorter for some reason. And when they typed it into Yandex, how tall do you think Yandex said the mountain was? Okay. Just a little larger. So among students, it became a discussion. Like, why are these search engines giving us different numbers? Are they drawing on different information sources? Are there different algorithms at work? Is there measurement error? Is one measured in the winter when there's more snow and the other one measured in the summer? Okay. So we want them to think behind what they're finding in their search efforts. We also had them do something similar with chatbots. So if we take Google Bard, ChatGPT, and Bing, and we had them type the same prompt into these 3 large language models. And they asked each of them, what's the best generative AI chatbot? It's an interesting question. So what do you think Bard said? It said it is the best chat bot available. How about ChatGPT? Okay, it said it was the best. Okay. Interestingly, it said the older model is better, a peculiar response. And Microsoft Bing said it was the best. So you can see here a kind of awareness of the algorithm and how it's shaping what you end up seeing on the screen, both for search and for the use of AI. So we as teachers need to begin thinking about the kind of tasks and equipping students to ask the questions that help reveal how the algorithm is shaping what they're doing in their work. I think I have about 1 more minute. Am I correct? So we finish these kinds of activities by asking students a question. We wanted a question that would really kind of not upset them, but get them to wake up a little bit. These are middle school students, and they're trying to gain their independence and be their own person. But we wanted them to realize that they could be somebody's puppet. In other words, somebody's manipulating them with the technology, and they might not be thinking about that. So we would pose questions like this one. Are you someone's puppet? Is there somebody puppeteer sort of guiding and shaping everything you see on your screen? We found that this kind of question with middle schoolers gets their attention because they don't want to be seen as a puppet. And they began to think more critically and analytically about the tools, the technologies that they're using. So I am at the end of my time, and I'm going to finish by saying that our experience over the decade gave us the opportunity to think deeply and to work personally with teachers. We think that the lessons learned from this show us a couple of things. Our time horizon for equipping teachers needs to be much longer. We can't do it with just a simple set of modules. Most countries I'm in and I work with say, oh, we're going to develop an AI course online, and that'll get them ready for using AI in the classroom. That will be insufficient. There might be knowledge, but it won't be knowledge that's lived out in action that's wise and ethical. The second is that there needs to be support along with whatever happens, deep support. We had 24 doctoral students working over 10 years on this project, and it was intense. We provided what was called just-in-time support. That means a teacher's in her room, something's not working, she could call, say help, okay? And in that moment, we would provide help. I don't know if most schools, most settings are equipped to provide that kind of support. So we need a wider time horizon, and we need support that's available when it's needed at that moment. We can't wait days for something to come and be of help. Thirdly, we have to develop a kind of mindset that's very flexible and open to learning. Because, as you well know, these technologies keep changing rapidly. What we now know and experience with ChatGPT 3 is very different with ChatGPT 4.0, which is multimodal. We can talk to it. Okay? It can respond to us, and we can have long dialogues. So we have to provide a kind of cognitive flexibility over time that will permit our new and our experienced teachers to grow with the technologies, sometimes from week to week. So those are three key lessons that I think we can draw, not just from the Apple studies, but from the work that my colleagues and I have done over the last few years.